The clown's laugh sounded exactly like the voice from my husband's phone. It happened in the middle of the party right when the music was loud, the kids were shrieking, and the backyard smelled like pizza and melted sugar. The clown was bending down to tie a balloon into a sword, her white gloves flashing under the string lights, her red nose bobbing with every exaggerated breath. And then she spoke. Not loudly, not to the crowd, just to my daughter, softly, like a secret. "Okay, birthday girl, you ready for magic?" My hand froze around the plastic cup I was holding. The ice inside clinked once, a small, ordinary sound that suddenly felt too sharp. Because I'd heard that voice before. Not in my backyard, under pastel streamers and cartoon banners. In the dark. Late at night. From the glow of my husband's phone as he stood in the hallway, whispering into the screen like he didn't want the walls to hear him. The same rhythm. The same breathy little laugh at the end of a sentence. The same way her words curled upward, like she expected someone to lean closer. For a moment, I couldn't move. I watched the clown, pink wig, painted smile, oversized shoes, hand my daughter a balloon animal and clap like she'd just made the moon appear. The children cheered. The parents laughed politely. And I stood there, feeling like my body had split into two versions of me. One version was still hosting a 6-year-old's birthday party, smiling when someone looked my way, making sure the juice boxes were cold and the cupcakes didn't melt. The other version was staring at a woman in clown makeup, realizing my marriage had just walked into my backyard wearing a costume. I remember thinking, absurdly, this can't be real. But reality has a way of not caring what you can handle. It just arrives. Before that day, I would have told anyone my life was fine. Not perfect, but solid. The kind of marriage that had survived diapers and daycare and the exhaustion that settles into your bones when you're raising a child while trying to stay an adult. My husband, Mark, and I had been together 10 years, married for 7. We weren't the couple who posted long love captions online. We were the couple who remembered each other's coffee orders. Who knew which creak on the staircase meant the other one was heading down. Who paid bills on time and argued quietly about chores. We had one child, our daughter, Emma, who was the kind of kid that made strangers smile. She had a gap between her front teeth and a laugh that filled a room. She loved glitter, dogs, and anything that involved a surprise. When she told me she wanted a circus party for her 6th birthday, I said yes before I even thought about it. I wanted it to be special. Not because I needed to prove anything. Because she deserved it. So I planned. I ordered the decorations, bright reds and yellows, little paper fans, tiny plastic top hats. I booked a clown through a local entertainment service that had good reviews and a clean-looking website. The clown's name in the email signature was Lola. The company sent a contract, a deposit invoice, and a cheerful confirmation message. Lola can't wait to meet Emma. I didn't think twice. Why would I? Looking back, I can pinpoint when my trust started to thin. It wasn't one big event. It was a collection of small moments that felt like nothing until they stacked up. Mark started taking his phone into the bathroom. Not every time, just often enough that I noticed. He'd begun stepping outside to take calls, even when it wasn't work-related. He'd smile at the screen sometimes, this soft, private smile that didn't belong in our shared life. When I asked who it was, he'd say, "Just a friend," too quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was tired. I told myself that marriage changes, that people need space, that not every secret is a betrayal. But I'd catch him at night, standing in the hallway with the phone angled away from me, and something in my stomach would tighten like a warning I didn't want to hear. One night, when he fell asleep with his phone on the couch, I stared at it. I didn't touch it. I just stared like the device itself held a question I was afraid to ask. That was the kind of woman I was then. Afraid of answers. The day of the party, I was too busy to be suspicious. The house was full. My sister had come early to help tape streamers to the fence. Emma's friends arrived in sparkly dresses and tiny sneakers that blinked when they walked. Someone spilled fruit punch on the patio, and I dabbed at it with paper towels while pretending it didn't bother me. Mark was in a good mood, almost too good. He grilled hot dogs, laughed with the dads, offered to refill drinks. He kissed my cheek and told me I looked beautiful, and for a second, I let myself relax. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe we were fine. Then Lola arrived. She came through the side gate carrying a small rolling suitcase and a balloon pump. She waved like she'd done this 100 times, and the kids swarmed her instantly, drawn to the bright wig and painted smile. Her costume was cheerful, harmless. Big suspenders, polka dots, cartoon makeup. And then she spoke. "Hey, friends," she sang out, voice bubbly. "Are we ready to have some fun?" My blood ran cold. I turned my head slowly, like if I moved too fast, I'd make it real. Across the yard, Mark's head snapped up, just for half a second. But I saw it. The way his face tightened. The way his hand paused mid-flip of a burger. The way his eyes locked onto the clown like he'd seen a ghost, only it wasn't fear in his expression. It was recognition. I felt the world narrow down to that one look. And suddenly, the party sounds, the children's squeals, the music, the chatter, faded behind the pounding in my ears. Because I wasn't just hearing a familiar voice. I was watching my husband react to it. And that reaction told me what my instincts had been trying to say for months. This wasn't a coincidence. This was my life catching up to his lies. I didn't confront him. Not yet. That's the part people always question when I tell this story. They imagine a woman storming across the yard, ripping off the clown wig like it's a dramatic movie scene, screaming in front of children with cake frosting on their fingers. But real life doesn't always give you the luxury of dramatic timing. Real life gives you a backyard full of 6-year-olds. It gives you a daughter with a paper crown on her head, cheeks sticky with juice, looking up at the clown like she's watching wonder itself. So I did what mothers do when their world cracks open in public. I held it together. I became two people again. One person kept smiling, kept handing out napkins, kept nodding at other parents like everything was normal. The other person, quiet, terrified, furious, watched and listened. Because I needed to know the truth before I let it burn down my child's birthday. And the truth was standing 10 feet away, twisting balloons. Lola, the clown, moved through her routine like she'd done it 1,000 times. She did a magic trick with a deck of cards. She pretended to pull a coin from behind a little boy's ear. The kids shrieked in delighted disbelief, the kind of sound that comes from a place untouched by adult pain. I watched her hands. They were steady, professional, comfortable. This wasn't her first party. This wasn't her first performance. And something about that thought made me feel sick. Because if she could smile through this, if she could make my daughter laugh while knowing exactly who I was, then this wasn't an accident. This was audacity. At one point, she moved closer to the patio where I stood and said, loudly for the children, "Okay, parents. We need a brave volunteer." Her eyes flicked to me. Just once. But it was enough. There was a pause, no more than a breath, where her gaze lingered like she was trying to place me. Or maybe she already knew, and was waiting to see if I would break. I held her gaze calmly. I smiled. I raised my hand. "I'll do it," I said. My voice sounded normal, almost cheerful. Inside, I felt like I was walking into a room I'd been warned never to enter. She guided me into the center of the yard, where the kids sat cross-legged on a picnic blanket. My daughter was right in front, eyes wide, hands clasped in excitement. Lola placed a shiny top hat on my head and bowed dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "give a big hand to Emma's wonderful mom." The parents clapped politely. Mark didn't. He stood by the grill, frozen in place, like his body was trying to become invisible. I could feel his panic from across the yard. Lola did a trick where she tied a scarf into a knot that disappeared in her hands. The kids gasped. Emma giggled so hard she snorted. And I stood there with a clown's hat on my head, smiling for my daughter, while my marriage died quietly in the sunlight. Lola leaned in toward me as she pretended to whisper instructions. Her breath smelled faintly like mint gum. And then, so softly only I could hear, she said, "You look familiar." There it was. That moment. That test. My heart thudded once, hard. I kept my smile in place. "People say that sometimes," I whispered back, equally soft. "It's probably the hat." Her painted eyebrows lifted slightly, a micro-expression beneath the makeup. Then she stepped back and continued the show. But something had shifted in the air. A thread pulled taut. I walked back to the patio after the trick, legs steady, face composed. My sister, Jenna, leaned close and said, "You okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," I replied automatically. Then she added, laughing softly, "This clown is really good though. Emma's obsessed." I nodded, swallowing hard. My daughter ran up to me with a balloon dog and threw her arms around my waist. "Mommy, did you see? She made it from nothing." I kissed the top of her head. "I saw, baby. It's amazing." And I meant it about Emma's joy, not the clown. Because here's the cruelest part. My daughter was having the best day of her life. And I was trying not to ruin it. I found myself watching Mark more than Lola after that. He kept moving like everything was normal, flipping burgers, offering ketchup, laughing at jokes, but his laughter sounded hollow. His eyes didn't meet mine. When they did accidentally, he looked away too fast. Like a man who knows he's standing on a trapdoor. At one point, he stepped into the house for more plates. He was gone longer than necessary. I followed, quietly, using the excuse of checking the cupcakes. Inside, the air was cooler. The music from outside became muffled. The hallway smelled faintly of sunscreen and sugar. Mark stood in the kitchen with his phone in his hand, thumb moving quickly, typing. When he noticed me, he jolted like a teenager caught doing something wrong. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Nothing," he said too quickly. "Just checking something." I looked at his phone without moving closer. "Checking what?" His jaw tightened. "Work." I let the silence stretch. In the background, outside, a child screamed with laughter. Mark's eyes darted toward the window, then back to me. His face changed, not relief, not anger. Fear. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. Because innocent people don't look afraid of their own backyard. I kept my voice gentle. "Did you know her?" "The clown." He swallowed. "No." The lie came out smooth. Too smooth. I nodded slowly. "Okay." Then I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Mark, don't make me ask you again." His throat moved. He didn't answer. I turned away before he could. I didn't want an argument in my kitchen while my child was outside making wishes over candles. So I returned to the party. But now I had a plan. Not revenge. Not a scene. A plan to get proof. Because the part of me that used to avoid answers, she was gone. And the part of me that remained was done being played. When Lola began packing up her props, I moved toward the back gate where her rolling suitcase sat. I wasn't going to touch her things. I wasn't going to do anything illegal. But I was going to watch. She pulled out her phone to check something, maybe a ride, maybe directions. And I saw the screen light up with a name. Not fully. Just a notification banner, quick and disappearing. But it was enough. Mark Redheart. My stomach turned over. I didn't breathe for a moment. Then my body did something calm, almost automatic. I took my own phone from my pocket. I opened the camera. And I captured one photo, just one of her phone in her hand, the name visible enough to matter. I didn't need more. Because now the truth wasn't a feeling. It was an image. It was evidence. And evidence has weight. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked toward the patio, where Mark stood holding a plate of leftover cake like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. The party was ending. The kids were tired. The sun was lowering. And inside me, something was rising, quiet, steady, unavoidable. The confrontation was coming. Not in front of children. Not in front of guests. But soon. And this time, he wouldn't be able to laugh it off. The party ended the way children's parties always do, slowly dissolving into tired hugs, sticky fingers, and parents apologizing for leaving early because of bedtime routines. Emma hugged Lola tightly before she left. "Will you come back next year?" she asked, eyes shining. Lola laughed, a practiced, musical sound. "Maybe, sweetheart. You were a great audience." She didn't look at me when she said it. I watched her wheel her suitcase down the driveway, her oversized shoes clomping against the concrete, and I felt something in my chest loosen, not relief, but readiness. When the last car pulled away and the gate clicked shut, the backyard fell quiet. The silence felt enormous. Mark stacked plates at the picnic table, his movements stiff. He kept clearing his throat like there was something lodged there he couldn't swallow. Emma tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, can we open presents now?" I knelt down and brushed frosting from her cheek. "Tomorrow, okay? Mommy's really tired." She frowned for half a second, then nodded. "Okay." Mark watched us from across the yard, his face unreadable. I sent Emma inside with my sister, telling her we'd be right there. As soon as the door closed, I turned to my husband. "Sit down," I said. He hesitated. "Now," I added, not loud, but firm. He sat. The string lights hummed faintly above us. A balloon rolled across the grass and bumped into the fence. I took my phone out and placed it on the table between us, screen down. "I know," I said. He opened his mouth. Closed it. "You don't need to confess," I continued. "You don't need to explain. I'm not asking questions." His eyes flicked to the house, toward where our daughter was laughing with my sister. "This isn't the time," he said quietly. I nodded. "You're right. It's not." Then I added, "But this is the moment." He rubbed his hands together. "I don't know what you think you saw." "I heard her voice," I said. "I saw your face. I saw her phone." He froze. That was it. The last hinge breaking. "I can explain," he whispered. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Then explain why the woman you've been texting for months was dressed as a clown at our daughter's birthday party." He flinched at the word clown. "It wasn't planned like that," he said quickly. "I swear. I didn't know she was booked for today." "Did you know she was a children's entertainer?" I asked. He didn't answer. I nodded slowly. "So you knew?" He dropped his head into his hands. "I didn't think." "No," I said. "You didn't." The admission sat between us, heavy and complete. "She said it was just a job," he muttered. "She said it would be fine." "She?" I repeated. He looked up, eyes red. "I never meant for you to find out like this." I stared at him. "How did you mean for me to find out?" He didn't respond. "I want you to listen to me carefully," I said. "You don't get to explain this away with bad timing or costumes or jokes. You brought someone into our home, into our child's space, without my consent." "She didn't touch Emma," he said quickly. "She was professional." I felt something cold move through me. "That's your defense?" He realized his mistake immediately. "I'm done talking," I said, standing. "We'll talk later. After Emma's asleep." He reached out, touching my wrist lightly. "Please." I looked down at his hand. "Don't." He let go. That night, after Emma was tucked in and the house had settled into its familiar creaks, I sat at the kitchen table and went through Mark's phone. Not secretly. He handed it to me. Password and all. There were messages, months worth. Jokes. Complaints. Late-night confessions. Photos that stopped just short of explicit, but crossed every other line with ease. She called him my escape. He called her the only one who really sees me. I read until the words blurred. Then I slid the phone back to him. "Was it worth it?" I asked quietly. He cried then. Full body, shaking sobs. "I don't know," he said. "I didn't think it would go this far." "It always goes this far," I replied. "You just didn't think you'd be caught." The next weeks unfolded like a slow, controlled burn. We told Emma we needed some space. Mark moved into the guest room, then into an apartment across town. I told my sister the truth. She stared at me stunned. "A clown?" I nodded. "I wish I were joking." She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Words spread carefully, as these things do. Some people laughed nervously at the absurdity. Others went quiet, unsure how to respond. The woman, the clown, stopped working events in our area. I don't know if it was by choice or necessity. Mark tried counseling, tried apologies, tried rewriting the story in softer language. But there are betrayals that don't need retelling. They announce themselves. Months later, when the divorce papers were finalized, Emma asked me one night, "Why doesn't Daddy live here anymore?" I chose my words carefully, because sometimes adults make choices that hurt people and they need to learn how to be better. She thought about that. "Did he hurt you?" I nodded. "Yes." She wrapped her arms around my neck. I'm sorry, Mommy. I held her close and breathed in the scent of her shampoo, the quiet miracle of her presence. I'm okay, I said. I will be. Life didn't become perfect after that, but it became honest. And honesty, I learned, is a better foundation than trust ever was, because trust can be taken. Honesty has to be chosen. The weeks after Mark moved out felt strangely quiet, like the house had learned a new rhythm and was still testing it. I stopped setting 2 mugs out in the morning, stopped buying his cereal, stopped waiting for the sound of his keys at night. The absence became its own presence, sharp at first, then manageable, then almost gentle. Emma adjusted faster than I expected. Children have a way of accepting new realities if they're wrapped in routine and truth. We made pancakes on Saturdays. We planted herbs in the backyard. We started reading together before bed instead of watching television. Small rituals. Solid things. I told myself that healing was happening, but healing isn't a straight line. Some nights, after Emma was asleep, I'd sit on the edge of the couch and replay that afternoon in the backyard, the music, the balloons, the sound of that familiar voice slipping through a clown's painted smile. I would think about how close I'd come to never knowing, how easily a secret can slip into a life and live there rent-free. Mark kept trying to reach out. Emails at first. Long ones. Apologetic ones. Carefully worded confessions that sounded rehearsed. Then shorter messages. Then just, can we talk? I didn't reply. Not because I hated him. Because I didn't trust myself not to soften. The first time I saw him again was at a school pickup. I hadn't expected it. He stood near the gate, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I remembered. Older, too. The lines around his eyes had deepened. Emma spotted him before I did. Daddy, she called, running toward him. He scooped her up and held her close, eyes closed for a second longer than necessary. I stood back, giving them space, reminding myself that his role as her father was separate from his failure as my husband. He looked at me over her shoulder. Thank you, he said quietly, for letting me see her. I nodded. This isn't about us. I know, he replied. And for once, I believed him. People reacted in different ways once the story became common knowledge. Some offered support, meals, babysitting, quiet company. Others avoided me, as if betrayal were contagious. A few asked questions they had no business asking. What happened? Was it really a clown? Do you think it was serious? I learned how to answer without giving pieces of myself away. Yes, it happened. Yes, it was strange. No, I don't owe you details. The hardest conversations were with people who wanted me to forgive him quickly, who spoke about marriage like a contract that could be patched up with enough patience. Everyone makes mistakes, they said. I smiled politely and thought, some mistakes come with costumes and cake. One afternoon, months later, I found myself laughing. Really laughing. Emma had insisted on teaching me a silly dance she learned at school. We spun around the living room, knocking into furniture, collapsing onto the rug in giggles. I caught my reflection in the mirror, hair messy, face flushed, and for a moment, I didn't see a woman who'd been humiliated or betrayed. I saw someone alive. That realization startled me more than the discovery ever had. Mark and I eventually sat down for a final conversation, not about reconciliation, but about closure. We met at a cafe near the park. Neutral ground. He looked nervous. I don't expect forgiveness, he said immediately. I just wanted to say I'm sorry without excuses. I studied him carefully. Why now? He swallowed. Because I finally understand what I did. I waited. I didn't just cheat, he continued. I humiliated you. I risked our daughter's sense of safety. I made our home a place where lies were comfortable. That was the closest thing to truth I'd heard from him. I don't need you to punish yourself, I said. I need you to be better for Emma. He nodded. I'm trying. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, are you okay? I thought about it. About the nights that still hurt. About the mornings that felt lighter. About the strength I didn't know I had until it was demanded of me. Yes, I said finally. I am. Life moved forward. Not dramatically. Not triumphantly. Just steadily. I redecorated the house slowly, replacing pieces that felt tied to old memories. I painted Emma's room a brighter color. I started taking long walks again, something I used to love before life got crowded. And sometimes, when I drove past that entertainer's van parked at a distance, or saw a clown on a billboard, I felt a pang. Not anger. Recognition. A reminder of how thin the line can be between normal and shattered. One night, as I tucked Emma in, she asked, "Mommy, are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm learning how to be," I answered honestly. She smiled sleepily. "I think you're doing a good job." I kissed her forehead and turned off the light. Standing in the hallway, listening to the quiet hum of the house, I realized something important. The party had ended long ago, but my life hadn't. And it wasn't defined by the moment someone chose to betray me, it was defined by what I chose to do afterward. The real consequences didn't arrive all at once. They came quietly, like ripples spreading after a stone sinks. Word traveled through school parking lots, neighborhood barbecues, whispered phone calls. Not in the dramatic way I'd once imagined, but in fragments. A look held too long. A sentence left unfinished. People knew something had happened, even if they didn't know everything. And somehow, that was enough. The entertainer, her, disappeared from the local circuit. I didn't celebrate that. I didn't need to. What mattered was that the truth had weight, and it settled where it needed to. A few parents mentioned they'd heard concerns and decided to hire someone else for future parties. I never confirmed or denied anything. I didn't have to. Mark felt it more directly. Invitations stopped coming. Friends he'd once laughed with at cookouts grew distant, polite but cool. He told me once, carefully, like he was stepping around glass, that people had started seeing him differently. I deserve that, he said. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because I'd learned not to manage his feelings anymore. The divorce moved forward in slow, procedural steps. Paperwork. Meetings. Dates on calendars. It was all so unromantic, so ordinary, that sometimes I had to remind myself this was the ending of a life I'd once believed in. During one mediation session, Mark tried to apologize again. "I never meant for it to spill into Emma's world," he said, eyes fixed on the table. I looked at him, really looked at him. Intent doesn't erase impact. He nodded, accepting it this time without argument. We finalized everything with dignity. No shouting. No theatrics. Just two adults acknowledging that something essential had broken beyond repair. When it was done, I walked out into the parking lot, sat in my car, and cried, not from devastation, but from release. Emma asked fewer questions as time passed. Children adapt when they're given honesty and stability. She learned the new routine. New drop-off days. New rules. New normal. One afternoon, she came home from school with a drawing, our house, the sun bright overhead, a stick figure version of us holding hands. "Look, Mommy," she said proudly. I drew us happy. I taped it to the refrigerator. That picture mattered more than any apology ever could. I began to notice changes in myself, subtle but steady. I stopped doubting my instincts. Stopped second-guessing discomfort. When something felt wrong, I listened. I laughed louder. Slept deeper. Ate when I was hungry instead of when it was convenient. These were small freedoms, but they felt monumental. Once, at a friend's birthday dinner, someone mentioned hiring entertainment for a child's party. The table erupted in suggestions. I smiled, lifted my glass, and said nothing. Later, one of the women pulled me aside. "I don't know how you stayed so calm through all of that." I thought about it for a moment. I wasn't calm, I said. I was focused. Focused on protecting my child, my sanity, my future. Mark and I found a rhythm that worked for Emma. Brief check-ins. Neutral tones. Clear boundaries. One day, during a drop-off, he hesitated at the door. "You've changed," he said. "Yes," I replied. I had to. He looked like he wanted to say more, but thought better of it. I closed the door gently behind him. The strangest part of healing was how ordinary it felt once it arrived. No dramatic music. No grand declarations. Just mornings that didn't ache. Evenings that felt light. A sense that I was no longer holding my breath. I realized I hadn't thought about her in weeks. Not the costume. Not the voice. Not the absurdity of it all. The betrayal had shrunk to its proper size, a chapter, not the whole book. One night, after Emma was asleep, I sat alone in the backyard. The air was cool. Crickets chirped. Somewhere nearby, a radio played softly. I thought about that birthday party, the balloons, the cake, the way my world had tilted without warning. And I thought about how I'd stood there, smiling for my daughter, even as everything inside me reeled. That woman had been stronger than she knew. So was the woman sitting here now. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this. Truth doesn't always arrive politely. Sometimes it shows up wearing makeup you don't recognize, speaking in a voice you wish you'd never heard. But when it comes, you don't have to explode. You don't have to perform pain for anyone else's understanding. You just have to choose yourself. Every single day after. By the time a full year had passed, the memory of that birthday party had softened at the edges. Not disappeared, never that, but changed. Like a scar you stop tracing with your fingers once it's healed enough to trust your skin again. Emma turned 7 on a quiet Saturday morning. No entertainer. No big crowd. Just a small cake, a handful of friends, and a picnic at the park. She wore a yellow dress and ran barefoot through the grass, laughing so hard she had to stop and catch her breath. I watched her from a bench, coffee cooling in my hands, and felt something settle in my chest. Peace doesn't arrive loudly. It slips in when you're not guarding the door anymore. I had returned to work full-time months earlier, not because I needed the distraction, but because I wanted my own momentum back. My colleagues treated me normally again. No careful glances, no hushed voices. That felt like a gift. One afternoon, as I was packing up my desk, my supervisor said, "You seem lighter." I smiled. "I am." She nodded, as if that was all the explanation needed. I didn't rush into dating. People asked, gently at first, then more insistently. I learned to answer with honesty instead of deflection. I'm not in a hurry, I'd say. I'm building something. That something was a life that didn't require constant reassurance. A life where I didn't ignore the small alarms inside me. A life where love, if it came again, would be rooted in respect. Mark and I eventually found a version of co-parenting that worked without reopening old wounds. Conversations stayed focused on Emma. Boundaries remained intact. One afternoon, during a school event, he stood beside me watching Emma perform a small skit. She waved at both of us from the stage. "She's doing well," he said quietly. Yes, I agreed. "She is." He hesitated, then added, "So are you." I didn't respond, but I didn't need to. I already knew. Every now and then, something small would remind me of how far I'd come. A balloon popping at a fair. A painted smile on a costume at a parade. A child's laughter echoing through a crowd. Instead of flinching, I breathed. Instead of reliving, I remembered, then let go. One evening, after Emma was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table sorting through old photos. Not out of sadness, but curiosity. I wanted to see my past self with clear eyes. There she was, me, smiling at family gatherings, standing beside Mark at events, holding Emma when she was small. I didn't feel embarrassed for her. I felt compassion. She trusted because she believed love meant safety. She stayed because she valued stability. She smiled because she wanted peace. None of that made her foolish. It made her human. I learned something important in the aftermath of betrayal. Dignity isn't loud. It doesn't shout accusations or demand public sympathy. It shows up in restraint. In choosing not to destroy what you're trying to protect. In telling the truth without cruelty. I hadn't exposed the betrayal for revenge. I had done it for clarity. For my daughter. For myself. On the anniversary of the divorce being finalized, I took Emma out for ice cream. We sat on the curb outside the shop, legs swinging, vanilla melting faster than we could eat it. "Mommy," she said, "serious suddenly, you're brave." I laughed softly. "Why do you think that?" She shrugged. "Because you take care of us." The simplicity of it nearly broke me. That night, after she was asleep, I stood in the doorway of her room for a long moment. Her chest rose and fell steadily. The world felt quiet, balanced. I thought about how that day, long ago, I'd smiled through a party while my heart cracked open. How I'd protected her joy even as my own certainty dissolved. And I realized something else. Strength doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like staying composed in chaos. Sometimes it looks like choosing patience over panic. Sometimes it looks like walking away without making a scene. If I could speak to the woman I was that afternoon, the one holding paper plates, listening to a familiar voice under grease paint, I would tell her this. You're going to survive this. You're going to grow from this. And one day, you'll look back without flinching. Life didn't become perfect, but it became honest. And that made all the difference. If you've stayed with me this long, I want you to know something. This story isn't really about a birthday party. It isn't about a clown costume or a shocking coincidence or even about infidelity. It's about that quiet moment when your intuition speaks and you finally listen. For a long time, I believed strength meant holding things together at any cost, smiling through discomfort, keeping the peace, protecting everyone else from the truth, even when that truth was slowly hollowing me out. But I learned that day, standing in my own backyard, surrounded by balloons and laughter, that peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's just patience running out. I didn't scream. I didn't expose anyone in front of a crowd. I didn't ruin a child's birthday to satisfy my pain. I waited. I gathered myself. And then I chose honesty over denial. That choice changed everything. Not because it made life easier overnight, but because it made life real again. If you're listening to this and carrying something heavy, if you've ignored a small voice inside you because it felt inconvenient, if you've been told you're too sensitive or overthinking, I hope this story reminds you that your clarity matters, your dignity matters, and protecting your peace, especially for your children, is never the wrong choice. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like quiet mornings, honest routines, laughter returning slowly without asking permission. So I'll leave you with this question. If you were standing where I stood that day, what would you have done? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe real stories, told gently, honestly, and without shouting, still matter, please consider subscribing. I'll be here, sharing more real-life stories every day.